The radio crackled to life at 03:15 hours on June 6, 1944. Deep within a concrete bunker overlooking the English Channel, German intelligence officer Major Wilhelm Richter stared at the decoded message from Agent Garbo, their most trusted spy in Britain. The transmission was urgent, almost frantic. Massive Allied force departing from Dover, estimated 50 divisions. Patton commanding, target, Pas-de-Calais. Richter's hands trembled as he reached for the secure telephone to Berlin. What he didn't know was that at that very moment, thousands of Allied soldiers were already storming the beaches of Normandy, 150 miles away. The greatest deception in military history had just reached its crescendo, orchestrated by a Spanish double agent, an army of artists, and an arsenal of inflatable tanks that would fool Hitler's entire war machine. And that was the moment the entire war shifted, though almost no one realized it at the time. This video examines published sources for educational purposes. Interpretations are attributed. No claims are asserted as fact without citation. Before we uncover today's secret from the pages of military history, if you enjoy exploring the hidden stories, decisive battles, and overlooked moments that shaped our world, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more untold wartime histories. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always amazed how these memories of the past connect us across so many corners of the world. The story of how the Allies fooled Hitler begins not with tanks or spies, but with a simple mathematical problem that haunted Allied commanders throughout 1943. General Dwight Eisenhower stood before a map of Nazi-occupied Europe, calculating the impossible. According to intelligence reports, Germany had stationed 60 divisions along the Atlantic Wall, with the heaviest concentration at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel. Any frontal assault would face devastating casualties. Historical records from the Imperial War Museums indicate that Allied planners estimated they would need a 3-to-1 advantage to successfully establish a beachhead against prepared German defences. The solution emerged from an unlikely collaboration between British intelligence officers and Hollywood special effects experts. Lieutenant Colonel John Jervis Reed, according to declassified MI5 documents, proposed what would become known as Operation Bodyguard, the umbrella deception plan that would spawn the most audacious military hoax in history. The concept was breathtakingly simple, yet monumentally complex. Create an entire phantom army so convincing that German high command would commit their reserves to defending the wrong beaches. At the heart of this deception stood a Spanish chicken farmer turned double agent whose real name was Juan Pujol Garcia. Born in Barcelona in 1912, Pujol emerged from the Spanish Civil War with what British intelligence files describe as a particular loathing for Nazism. In 1940, driven by admiration for Britain's solitary stand against the Axis powers, he approached British authorities 3 times, offering to spy against Germany. Each time, according to historian Ben McIntyre's research, the British dismissed him as an amateur. Undeterred by this rejection, Pujol executed a plan so audacious it defied conventional espionage wisdom. He contacted German intelligence directly, presenting himself as a pro-Nazi Spanish businessman with connections in Britain. The Germans, desperate for intelligence from the British Isles, recruited him immediately. What they didn't realise was that Pujol had never set foot in Britain. Operating from Lisbon, he began fabricating elaborate intelligence reports using nothing more than tourist guidebooks, railway, timetables, and his vivid imagination. Pujol's fictitious reports were so detailed and seemingly authentic that German intelligence began paying him substantial sums for information about British troop movements, factory production, and morale that existed only in his mind. He created an entire network of imaginary sub-agents, each with distinct personalities and specialties. According to declassified German intelligence files examined by historian Thaddeus Holt, the Abwehr was so impressed with their new asset that they assigned him the code name Arabelle. and began planning operations based on his fabricated intelligence. The British finally took notice in February 1942 when they intercepted German communications praising their Spanish agent's exceptional work. MI5 officer Tomás Harris tracked down Pujol in Lisbon and made him an offer that would change the course of the war. They brought him to London, gave him the codename Garbo, and transformed his one-man fiction writing operation into the cornerstone of Allied deception strategy. Under British supervision, Pujol expanded his phantom network to 27 imaginary agents spread across Britain. Each agent had a carefully constructed background, complete with personal quirks, political beliefs, and specialized knowledge. Agent Moonbeam was supposedly a Swiss businessman with access to military contracts. Benedict was described as a left-wing intellectual working in the Ministry of Information. Dagobert was allegedly a socialist contact in Gibraltar. German intelligence, according to captured wartime documents, found these personality details so convincing that they never questioned the network's authenticity. The success of Pujol's deception network created the foundation for Operation Fortitude, the specific plan to mislead German forces about D-Day's timing and location. British planners realized they possessed something unprecedented, a direct channel to German high command that Hitler's intelligence services trusted implicitly. According to Operation Fortitude planning documents held at the National Archives, Allied commanders decided to construct their entire deception strategy around Pujol's phantom intelligence network. Fortitude consisted of two complementary operations. Fortitude North aimed to convince Germans that Allied forces would invade Norway, tying down significant German reserves in Scandinavia. Fortitude South, the larger and more critical operation, sought to persuade German high command that the main Allied assault would target Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. Both operations relied heavily on Pujol's ability to feed convincing disinformation directly to Berlin through his established German handlers. The physical component of Fortitude South required creating tangible evidence of a massive military buildup in southeastern England, directly across the Channel from Calais. This is where the story takes an almost surreal turn into the realm of theatrical production. The British Army's camouflage units, many staffed by artists and designers recruited from London's theatre district, began constructing what amounted to the world's largest movie set. Dummy landing craft, constructed from wood and canvas, appeared in harbours throughout Kent and Essex. These vessels, nicknamed Big Bobs by the soldiers who built them, were so light that storms regularly flipped them over or drove them aground. According to engineering reports from the period, teams worked around the clock to repair and reposition these fragile decoys before German reconnaissance flights could photograph their obviously fake nature. The Americans contributed their own theatrical unit to the deception, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, later known as the Ghost Army. This extraordinary unit of 1,100 soldiers included fashion designer Bill Blass, sculptor Ellsworth Kelly, and dozens of other artists recruited specifically for their creative abilities. Their mission was to impersonate entire divisions using inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and sound effects broadcast through powerful speakers. The Ghost Army's inflatable Sherman tanks represented a marvel of wartime ingenuity. Each rubber decoy could be inflated by 4 men in 20 minutes and from a distance of 500 yards appeared identical to real armor. According to unit records maintained by the US Army Heritage and Education Center, the Ghost Army deployed these decoys in carefully orchestrated patterns designed to suggest major armored formations preparing for offensive operations. Sound played an equally crucial role in the deception. The Ghost Army's sound trucks carried speakers capable of broadcasting recorded tank and truck noises audible from 20 kilometers away. These recordings, made at genuine training exercises, included the distinctive sounds of Sherman tanks starting their engines, tracks clanking over different terrain, and soldiers shouting commands. German listening posts regularly reported major Allied troop movements that existed only as sound effects echoing across the English countryside. The centerpiece of Fortitude South was the creation of the first United States Army Group, known as FUSAG. This entirely fictional army group supposedly consisted of 11 divisions totaling 150,000 men, all preparing to assault Calais under the command of General George Patton. The choice of Patton as FUSAG's commander was psychologically brilliant. German intelligence files captured after the war revealed that Hitler and his generals considered Patton the Allies' most dangerous field commander. If Patton was leading an assault, German logic dictated it would be the main effort. Pujol's role in selling FUSAG's authenticity cannot be overstated. Through his network of imaginary agents, he fed German intelligence a steady stream of reports about Patton's activities in southeastern England. According to transcripts of his radio transmissions preserved in British intelligence archives, Pujol's fictional agents reported seeing Patton inspecting troops, attending briefings, and reviewing invasion plans. These reports, transmitted in the cipher that German intelligence trusted completely, reached Hitler's desk within hours. The deception's success required meticulous attention to detail that extended far beyond military matters. Pujol's imaginary agents reported on everything from weather conditions to civilian morale, from factory production schedules to rationing policies. This comprehensive intelligence picture convinced German analysts that they possessed unprecedented insight into British preparations for the invasion. German response to Pujol's intelligence exceeded Allied expectations. Intercepted communications, decoded through the ultra-intelligence program at Bletchley Park, revealed that German high command was not merely receiving Pujol's reports, but actively restructuring their defensive strategy based on his fabricated information. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel repositioned entire divisions to strengthen defenses around Calais, exactly as Allied planners hoped. The psychological pressure on Pujol during this period was enormous. He was transmitting messages to German intelligence sometimes 20 times per day, each requiring careful coordination with other elements of the deception plan. A single inconsistency in his reporting could expose the entire operation and doom the real invasion. According to his post-war memoirs, Pujol often worked 18-hour days crafting messages that would maintain his credibility while advancing Allied objectives. As D-Day approached, Pujol faced his greatest challenge: how to maintain German trust while Allied forces launched their actual assault on Normandy. The solution was as audacious as everything else about his operation. On June 5, 1944, just hours before the invasion began, Pujol attempted to send an urgent warning to his German handlers about imminent Allied military activity. The message was timed to arrive too late to affect the invasion, but early enough to demonstrate his continued reliability as an intelligence source. The mathematics of deception were about to be tested against the reality of warfare, with the fate of Western Europe hanging in the balance. The message that never came through would haunt German intelligence for decades. According to archived Abwehr communications discovered in 1974, Madrid radio operators were monitoring for Garbo's emergency transmission throughout the night of June 5th. The frequency remained silent. By dawn on June 6th, when German listening posts finally received Garbo's delayed warning about Allied movements, the first wave of assault troops was already fighting inland from Omaha Beach. Yet this apparent intelligence failure would paradoxically become Garbo's greatest triumph. The delayed transmission created exactly the credibility Juan Pujol needed to execute the most audacious phase of his deception. On June 9th, 3 days after D-Day, Pujol sent what historian Ben McIntyre later called the message that saved the invasion. According to transcripts preserved in British intelligence files, Garbo informed his German handlers that his network had conducted a comprehensive assessment of Allied strength in Britain. The report was staggering. 75 divisions remained in England, with the bulk concentrated in southeastern counties under Patton's command. The mathematics were deliberately terrifying from a German perspective. If the Normandy landings had involved only a fraction of Allied strength, as Garbo's intelligence suggested, then a second larger invasion was imminent. German High Command faced an impossible choice: reinforce Normandy against the established beachhead, or maintain reserves to counter Patton's Phantom Army group. Intercepted communications decoded at Bletchley Park revealed heated debates within the German command structure, with some officers demanding immediate reinforcement of Normandy, while others insisted that Calais remained the primary target. Hitler himself resolved the debate in favor of Pujol's deception. According to General Jodel's post-war testimony during the Nuremberg trials, the Führer declared that Normandy was merely a diversionary attack designed to draw German reserves away from the real invasion site. This strategic miscalculation, based entirely on fabricated intelligence from a Spanish double agent, would prove catastrophic for German defensive efforts. The physical deception supporting Pujol's intelligence reports required constant maintenance and adaptation. The Ghost Army's operations in post-invasion France demonstrated the evolution of tactical deception under combat conditions. According to unit records from the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, these artist soldiers conducted 23 separate deception operations across Western Europe, each designed to mislead German intelligence about Allied strength and intentions. During Operation Elephant in July 1944, the Ghost Army simulated the presence of the entire 2nd Armoured Division near St. Vith, Belgium. The deception required deploying 600 inflatable tanks, trucks and artillery pieces across a 20 square mile area. German aerial rear Reconnaissance photographed the dummy equipment repeatedly, with Luftwaffe intelligence reports describing significant Allied armoured concentrations that existed only as rubber and canvas props managed by fewer than 1,100 men. The psychological warfare component of Ghost Army operations proved equally effective. Their sound trucks broadcast recordings of tank maintenance activities, with mechanics allegedly working on engines throughout the night. German listening posts reported these sounds to intelligence officers, who incorporated them into assessments of Allied mechanical readiness. According to captured German documents examined by historian Rick Beyer, these fabricated maintenance sounds convinced German planners that Allied armoured units were preparing for major offensive operations that never materialised. Meanwhile, Pujol's intelligence network continued feeding German high command information designed to maintain their strategic confusion. His fictional agent network reported Patton conducting inspection tours of the Phantom FUSAG formations, reviewing invasion plans for the Calais assault, and coordinating with British commanders for the second wave of landings. According to MI5 files declassified in the 1990s, German intelligence found these reports so convincing that they began planning counter-deception operations to disrupt Patton's fictitious preparations. The success of Operation Fortitude extended far beyond the initial invasion period. Through July and August 1944, German High Command maintained 2 armoured divisions and 19 infantry divisions in the Pas-de-Calais area, waiting for an invasion that would never come. These forces, totaling over 200,000 men according to German Order of Battle records, remained unavailable to reinforce German positions in Normandy, where Allied forces were fighting to expand their precarious beachhead. The strategic implications of this misallocation became apparent during Operation Cobra, the American breakout from the Normandy hedgerow country in late July. General Omar Bradley's forces faced determined German resistance from available reserves, but the additional division stationed around Calais could have potentially stopped the American advance entirely. Instead, these phantom-chasing units remained in their defensive positions, monitoring empty beaches while real battles raged 150 miles away. Pujol's personal risk during this extended deception period cannot be understated. German intelligence subjected his reports to increasingly sophisticated analysis as the war progressed. According to Abwehr documents captured in 1945, German analysts cross-referenced Pujol's intelligence with reports from other sources. looking for inconsistencies that might expose him as a double agent. The margin for error was virtually non-existent. A single contradictory detail could have unraveled the entire deception and potentially compromised other Allied intelligence operations. The technical challenges of maintaining his fictional agent network grew exponentially as the deception continued. Each imaginary agent required consistent personality traits, believable access to information, and plausible explanations for their intelligence-gathering activities. According to post-war interviews with MI5 officer Thomas Harris, Pujol maintained detailed files on every fictional character, tracking their supposed movements, personal relationships, and professional activities to ensure narrative consistency across hundreds of transmitted messages. The deception's scope extended beyond military intelligence into economic and political spheres. Pujol's agents reported on British industrial production, shipping schedules, and civilian morale, creating a comprehensive picture of British wartime society that German analysts found invaluable. These fabricated insights into British domestic conditions helped convince German leadership that Britain remained vulnerable to continued V-weapon attacks and potential invasion, further justifying their defensive preparations around Calais. The Ghost Army's operations in France revealed the tactical applications of strategic deception principles. During Operation Brittany in August 1944, the unit simulated the presence of the 6th Armoured Division southwest of Paris, while the real division advanced toward the German border. According to German situation reports captured during the advance, enemy intelligence identified significant American armoured strength in areas where only inflatable tanks and sound effects existed. The psychological impact on German forces extended beyond high-level strategic planning to frontline tactical decisions. German commanders, convinced they faced overwhelming Allied superiority based on inflated strength estimates, often chose defensive positions over offensive actions that might have disrupted Allied operations. According to prisoner interrogation reports archived at the US Army Heritage Center, German officers consistently overestimated Allied strength by factors of 2 or 3, leading to overly cautious tactical approaches that benefited Allied forces. The deception's influence on German resource allocation created cascading effects throughout their military structure. Units held in reserve around Calais required fuel, ammunition, and supplies that became unavailable to forces actually engaged in combat. According to German logistics records examined by historian David Kahn, maintaining these phantom-chasing formations consumed resources equivalent to supplying an entire army group, weakening German defensive capabilities across multiple fronts. The technological aspects of the deception operations demonstrated remarkable innovation under wartime conditions. The Ghost Army's inflatable equipment required constant repair and replacement due to combat damage and wear. Unit mechanics developed field-expedient repair techniques using bicycle patches, tire repair kits, and salvaged materials to maintain their rubber arsenal. According to technical reports from the 603rd Engineer Camouflage Battalion, maintaining operational readiness of inflatable decoys required more man-hours than operating equivalent real equipment. Radio deception formed the invisible backbone of these physical deceptions. The Ghost Army's signal units transmitted thousands of fake messages using captured German call signs and procedures, creating fictional command networks that German intelligence monitored continuously. According to cryptographic analysis conducted by the National Security Agency in the 1970s, these false communications were so sophisticated that German codebreakers never suspected their artificial nature. The human cost of these deception operations remained largely hidden from historical records. Ghost Army soldiers operated in forward areas where they faced the same combat risks as frontline troops, but without the firepower or support of regular combat units. According to casualty records maintained by the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, 3 soldiers died and dozens were wounded during deception operations, proving that even fake warfare carried real dangers. As Allied forces advanced deeper into German-occupied territory, The deception operations evolved to support new strategic objectives. The Ghost Army began simulating Allied strength along multiple axes of advance, creating the impression of overwhelming force that convinced German commanders to abandon prepared positions rather than risk encirclement by phantom divisions. The cumulative effect of these sustained deception efforts fundamentally altered the character of warfare in Western Europe. German military planning became increasingly reactive rather than proactive, as commanders struggled to respond to Allied movements that often existed only in the realm of carefully crafted illusion. The intercepted German communications revealed the true scope of their strategic paralysis. According to decoded Wehrmacht situation reports examined by historian David Kahn, German field commanders were requesting permission to relocate forces from Calais as late as August 1944, only to receive stern orders from Berlin to maintain their positions. The phantom threat had become more real to Hitler than the actual Allied armies advancing through France. The deception's psychological grip on German leadership manifested in increasingly desperate attempts to locate Patton's phantom formations. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights over southeastern England intensified throughout the summer of 1944, with pilots photographing empty fields that German intelligence interpreted as cleverly camouflaged staging areas. According to Royal Air Force records maintained at the National Archives, these German reconnaissance missions became so predictable that RAF controllers began scheduling defensive patrols specifically to intercept them, knowing exactly when and where German aircraft would appear. The Ghost Army's operations during this period demonstrated the evolution of battlefield deception from strategic to tactical applications. During Operation Brest in September 1944, the unit simulated an entire corps preparing to assault the German-held port city. The deception involved not just inflatable equipment and false radio traffic, but elaborate psychological warfare designed to demoralize German defenders. According to captured German documents, the fortress commander reported facing overwhelming Allied superiority when he actually confronted fewer than 30,000 American troops supported by rubber tanks. The technical sophistication of these deceptions reached extraordinary levels as the war progressed. The Ghost Army developed specialized techniques for aging their inflatable equipment to appear worn by combat use. Soldiers applied mud, scorch marks, and simulated battle damage to create tanks that looked like veteran combat vehicles rather than factory-fresh decoys. According to unit historians interviewed in the 1970s, these weathering techniques were so convincing that American supply officers occasionally attempted to requisition the fake equipment for actual combat units. Pujol's intelligence network faced its greatest test during the German counter-offensive in the Ardennes, later known as the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler's surprise attack in December 1944 caught Allied forces completely off guard, raising questions about the effectiveness of Allied intelligence operations. According to MI5 files declassified in 1995, German intelligence specifically avoided discussing their offensive plans through channels that Pujol might monitor, demonstrating their continued faith in his reliability while simultaneously limiting his access to their most sensitive operations. The irony of this situation became apparent only after the war. German intelligence protected Pujol from learning about their real operations while continuing to feed him false information about fictional defensive preparations around Calais. This created a bizarre intelligence feedback loop where both sides were deceiving each other, but only the Allies understood the true nature of the deception. According to post-war analysis by British intelligence officer John Masterman, this mutual deception actually strengthened Pujol's credibility with his German handlers, who interpreted their own operational security measures as evidence of his trustworthiness. The human drama within Pujol's fictional agent network reached operatic proportions during the final months of the war. His imaginary character, Moonbeam, reportedly died of cancer, complete with a fabricated obituary and funeral arrangements that Pujol transmitted to his German handlers. The Germans sent condolences and a substantial death benefit to Moonbeam's fictional widow, money that Pujol forwarded to British intelligence. According to his post-war memoirs, Pujol found these moments of manufactured grief genuinely emotional, as he had lived with these 3 years. The ghost fictional personalities for over Army's final major operation, codenamed Viersen in March 1945, demonstrated how tactical deception could influence strategic outcomes even in the war's closing stages. The unit simulated preparations for crossing the Rhine River at multiple points simultaneously, forcing German defenders to spread their limited reserves across a 50-mile front. According to German prisoner interrogation reports, enemy commanders believed they faced coordinated assaults by 6 different Allied divisions, when the actual crossing involved only 2 real divisions supported by inflatable phantoms. The logistics of maintaining these elaborate deceptions under combat conditions revealed remarkable dedication from the soldiers involved. Ghost Army maintenance crews worked through artillery bombardments to repair inflatable equipment damaged by shrapnel and small arms fire. According to unit records from the 603rd Engineer Camouflage Battalion, soldiers developed techniques for patching rubber tanks while under fire, using materials salvaged from destroyed vehicles and buildings. The sight of American soldiers risking their lives to repair fake tanks struck many observers as surreal. Yet these efforts were essential to maintaining the illusion that protected real Allied forces. The intelligence war surrounding these deceptions created its own shadowy battlefield. German agents attempted to penetrate the phantom formations, only to encounter elaborate security measures designed to protect non-existent secrets. According to counterintelligence reports archived at Fort Belvoir, American security personnel conducted fake briefings for suspected German spies, feeding them information about fictional battle plans that supported the overall deception narrative. These security theater performances were so convincing that some German agents reported detailed intelligence about Allied operations that existed only in the imagination of their American handlers. The psychological impact on German soldiers facing these phantom armies extended beyond strategic confusion to genuine terror. According to prisoner interrogation transcripts examined by historian Ben McIntyre, German infantrymen reported seeing Allied tank formations that vanished when artillery fire was directed at them, leading to rumors of supernatural American weapons or advanced camouflage technology. These psychological effects multiplied the tactical value of the physical deceptions, as German troops became reluctant to engage what they perceived as overwhelming and possibly supernatural opposition. The deception operations created unexpected diplomatic complications as the war neared its end. Soviet intelligence, monitoring German communications about Allied strength, began demanding explanations for discrepancies between reported and actual American force levels. According to diplomatic cables declassified in the 1970s, Stalin personally questioned Roosevelt about phantom divisions that existed only in German intelligence reports, forcing American officials to provide carefully crafted explanations that maintained operational security while preserving the wartime alliance. The technical challenges of dismantling these deception operations proved nearly as complex as creating them. The Ghost Army's inflatable arsenal required specialized disposal procedures to prevent enemy intelligence from discovering the true nature of Allied deception capabilities. According to unit records, soldiers deflated and buried thousands of rubber vehicles in unmarked graves across Western Europe, creating a hidden archaeological legacy that occasionally surfaces in construction projects decades later. The lasting influence of Operation Fortitude extended far beyond its immediate military objectives. German intelligence officers captured after the war underwent extensive debriefing about their assessment of Allied capabilities, revealing the comprehensive success of the deception campaign. According to interrogation summaries archived at the US Army Heritage Center, German analysts continued to believe in the existence of phantom Allied divisions months after Germany's surrender, demonstrating the deception on military thinking. The human profound psychological impact of systematic cost of these operations remained largely hidden from public recognition for decades after the war. Ghost Army veterans returned to civilian life carrying classified memories of their unusual service, unable to discuss their experiences with family or friends. According to oral history projects conducted in the 1980s, many veterans struggled with the psychological aftermath of warfare that existed primarily in the realm of imagination, where success was measured by the effectiveness of elaborate lies rather than conventional military achievements. The strategic lessons learned from these deception operations influenced military doctrine for generations. According to US Army training manuals developed in the 1950s, the success of Operation Fortitude demonstrated that modern warfare required psychological and informational components equal in importance to traditional kinetic operations. These doctrinal changes reflected a fundamental shift in military thinking, acknowledging that perception could be as decisive as physical force in determining battlefield outcomes. The technological legacy of wartime deception operations extended into Cold War intelligence activities, though specific applications remain classified decades later. According to congressional testimony from the 1970s, techniques developed by the Ghost Army influenced American psychological warfare capabilities throughout the nuclear age, proving that lessons learned from inflatable tanks and fictional spies retained relevance in an era of intercontinental ballistic missiles and satellite reconnaissance. The moral questions raised by these elaborate deceptions continue to challenge military ethicists and historians. According to philosophical analyses published in military journals, Operation Fortitude represented both the pinnacle of justified wartime deception and a troubling precedent for systematic manipulation of truth in armed conflict. These ethical debates reflect broader questions about the acceptable limits of deception in warfare, particularly when success depends on maintaining false narratives over extended periods. The intelligence revolution sparked by these operations transformed the relationship between information and military power. According to classified studies declassified in the 1990s, the success of Pujol's fictional agent network demonstrated that controlling enemy perceptions could be more valuable than controlling physical terrain. This insight fundamentally altered intelligence gathering and analysis procedures, emphasizing the strategic importance of understanding and manipulating enemy decision-making processes rather than simply collecting factual information about enemy capabilities. The intelligence victory achieved through Operation Fortitude represented far more than tactical success. According to strategic assessments conducted by the US Army War College in the 1960s, the deception fundamentally altered the mathematical relationship between attacking and defending forces. Traditional military doctrine required a 3-to-1 advantage for successful amphibious assault against prepared positions. By convincing German high command to misallocate their reserves, the Phantom armies effectively created that numerical advantage without deploying a single additional real soldier. The economic implications of sustaining these fictional formations created cascading effects throughout the German war economy. According to industrial production records examined by historian Adam Tooze, maintaining forces around Calais required steel, fuel, and ammunition that became unavailable to units engaged in actual combat. The Phantom threat consumed real resources while producing no defensive value, creating what economists would later term a strategic resource trap. Pujol's mastery of psychological manipulation reached its zenith during the final months of deception operations. His fictional agent network began reporting internal Allied disagreements about invasion timing, feeding German intelligence carefully crafted intelligence about supposed British reluctance to launch the second assault. According to MI5 files, these fabricated political tensions were designed to explain delays in the Phantom Calais invasion while maintaining German expectations that the attack remained imminent. The sophistication of this psychological warfare extended to manipulating German decision-making processes at the highest levels. Pujol's reports included details about Allied supply difficulties, weather concerns, and logistical challenges that German planners found entirely believable based on their own operational experiences. According to captured German planning documents, Hitler's staff used Pujol's intelligence to predict Allied invasion timing, creating elaborate defensive preparations for an assault that would never materialize. The Ghost Army's operations during the spring of 1945 demonstrated how tactical deception could influence strategic surrender negotiations. During Operation Flashpoint along the Rhine, the unit simulated massive Allied strength concentrations that convinced German commanders their positions were hopeless. According to prisoner interrogation reports archived at Fort Knox, German officers cited overwhelming Allied superiority as justification for surrendering units that actually face only token opposition, supported by inflatable decoys. The human drama of maintaining fictional personalities under such intense scrutiny took a psychological toll on the operators themselves. According to post-war medical evaluations of MI5 personnel, officers involved in long-term deception operations showed elevated stress indicators similar to combat veterans. The constant pressure of maintaining elaborate lies while knowing that detection could doom thousands of real soldiers created unique psychological burdens that military medicine had never previously encountered. The technical evolution of deception equipment reached remarkable sophistication by war's end. Ghost Army engineers developed inflatable aircraft so realistic that German pilots attempted to attack them during strafing runs, only to discover their ammunition had been wasted on rubber targets. According to unit technical reports, these aerial decoys included functional propellers, realistic weathering, and even simulated battle damage that convinced enemy observers they were observing veteran combat aircraft rather than elaborate props. The diplomatic consequences of these deception operations created lasting tensions within the Allied coalition. According to State Department cables declassified in the 1980s, Soviet intelligence began questioning discrepancies between reported and actual American force levels as early as 1944. Stalin's suspicions about phantom Allied divisions contributed to post-war tensions, as Soviet planners struggled to reconcile German intelligence reports with their own observations of Allied strength. The counterintelligence aspects of Operation Fortitude revealed the complexity of managing information in a multi-sided intelligence war. According to FBI records from the period, German agents operating in Britain occasionally stumbled across evidence of the deception operations, forcing American and British security services to conduct elaborate damage control operations. These security breaches required creating false evidence to support false evidence, creating layers of deception so complex that some participants lost track of which elements were real and which were fabricated. The technological legacy of wartime deception operations influenced military development programs for decades after 1945. According to Defense Department procurement records from the 1950s, the success of inflatable decoys led to massive investments in electronic warfare systems designed to create false radar signatures and communications networks. The principle of overwhelming enemy intelligence through systematic misinformation became a cornerstone of Cold War military doctrine. The human cost of these operations extended beyond the soldiers directly involved to the families and communities that supported them. According to Veterans Administration records, Ghost Army veterans experienced significantly higher rates of post-traumatic stress compared to conventional combat units. The psychological burden of fighting a war that existed primarily in the realm of imagination created unique therapeutic challenges that military medicine struggled to address for decades. The strategic lessons derived from Operation Fortitude revolutionized military education throughout the Western world. According to curriculum records from staff colleges in the United States and Britain, courses on deception operations became mandatory for senior officers by 1950. The success of phantom armies demonstrated that modern warfare required expertise in psychology and information manipulation equal to traditional military skills. In the end, Juan Pujol Garcia's Phantom Army accomplished what conventional military force alone could never achieve. The Spanish double agent who began his war armed only with tourist guidebooks and imagination had fundamentally altered the balance of power in Western Europe through the systematic manipulation of enemy perceptions. According to post-war assessments by Allied intelligence, Operation Fortitude saved an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 Allied lives by ensuring German reserves remained chasing ghosts rather than reinforcing actual battlefields. The Ghost Army's rubber tanks and fictional radio networks proved that in the age of industrial warfare, controlling enemy minds could be more decisive than controlling terrain. These artist-turned-soldiers demonstrated that creativity and deception, when applied with military precision, could multiply combat effectiveness far beyond traditional calculations. Their inflatable arsenal and phantom formations created strategic advantages that no amount of real steel could have achieved at equivalent cost. The mathematical elegance of the deception remains striking decades later. By convincing Hitler to maintain over 200,000 troops around Calais for an invasion that existed only in German imagination, the Allies effectively removed an entire army group from active combat operations. According to strategic analyses conducted by the US Army War College, this misallocation of German reserves shortened the European war by an estimated 6 to 8 months, saving countless lives on both sides. Perhaps most remarkably, the deception's success rested not on advanced technology or overwhelming resources, but on understanding human psychology and exploiting institutional biases within German intelligence structures. Pujol's fictional agent network succeeded because it told German commanders exactly what they expected to hear, confirming their preconceptions about Allied capabilities and intentions, while leading them inexorably towards strategic paralysis. The legacy of Operation Fortitude extends far beyond its immediate tactical success. The principles pioneered by Pujol and the Ghost Army influenced military doctrine throughout the Cold War and continue shaping information warfare strategies in the digital age. Their methods proved that in modern conflict, perception can be as powerful as reality, and that controlling enemy decision-making processes often matters more than destroying enemy equipment. Today, as we examine these declassified records and archived testimonies, we see how a Spanish chicken farmer and a unit of artist soldiers rewrote the rules of warfare through audacious creativity and meticulous execution. Their story reminds us that in the fog of war, sometimes the greatest victories come not from the loudest guns or heaviest armor, but from the quietest voices, whispering the most convincing lies. The cardboard tanks and phantom divisions of Operation Fortitude stand as testament to human ingenuity in the face of seemingly impossible odds, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon in any arsenal is the enemy's own imagination.